here with Ruth. And we're going to go over here. And I need to show this on the screen. There we go, before you switch off. And for those on a mobile device, I'll read this out, which is not the easiest thing to do. And then I'll get a little comment from Ruth, and then I'll go to these notes here. There we go. Lots of dialogue and funny bits there. Right, so back to this. Minister. The traditional allocation of executive responsibilities has always been so determined as to liberate the ministerial incumbent from the administrative minutiae by devolving the managerial functions to those whose experience and qualifications have better formed them for the performance of such humble offices, thereby releasing their political overlords for the more onerous duties and profound deliberations which are the inevitable concomitant of their exalted position. Whew. So, Ruth, what did you think of that?
I think you have to kind of like pause and read through that to understand what he's even saying. And like when you were watching it in the episode, it definitely, like, a lot of that just goes over your head. But yeah, basically what he's saying is some of the more like administrative tasks is better for the people who've been there longer to handle. Kind of like takes away those responsibilities from the minister and lets him just do his job.
Yep. Do you think this television series makes you smarter?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. And you love words.
It's a lot to think about.
You love words. You are, like, I've seen you on Instagram. I mentioned this before, folks, but you might not know. You post the origin and roots of words on your Instagram feed. If you want them to know that, you could like mention what it's called, but it depends. So now, because this one is good, I'm going to put this one here. This might be my favorite. Right there. I'm going to work that into conversations. Perpendicular pronoun. I say something like, INFPs, they tend to use a lot of the perpendicular pronoun. And I like the phrase pronoun density. Or maybe I could say the density of the perpendicular pronoun. Right. The identity of the official whose alleged responsibility for this hypothetical oversight has been the subject of... Wait a minute. I messed up. The identity of the official whose alleged responsibility for this hypothetical oversight has been the subject of recent discussion is not shrouded in quite such impenetrable obscurity as certain previous disclosures may have led you to assume. But, not to put too fine a point in it, the individual in question is, it may surprise you to learn, one whom your present interlocutor is in the habit of defining by means of the perpendicular pronoun. What? It was I. Is the full thing. I will get onto these slides later, folks. Well, I'll just whiz through them now because it's not that much there. There you go. Because, you know, you're not missing much. I love it when this bit said it's in the Guardian. So it's like that's
How do you know it's true? I read it in the Guardian.
That's like the Guardian literally is linked up with the Huffington Post in the United States. It has the same format and it has a link at the bottom of the Huffington Post to the Guardian in this country. And the website is organized the same. And it's like, oh, it's in the Huffington Post, it must be true. Right. There we go. Oh, hey, I got a word for you, Ruth. I had to look this one up. Emollient.
Emollient?
Emollient.
I think I know what that means. It means to soften.
Yes. Yes. Yep.
Yes.
You knew that. You knew that one. I did not know that one. I got it.
I've never used that before, really, in a sentence, though.
Yeah. I got it mixed up with a word that sounds similar. Well, I didn't get it mixed up, but I knew that emoluments sounded similar. That's in the US Constitution. Now, you know when she says here, get it yourself. Ooh, some fathers in the past would be like a slap across the face for that. Oh, there we go. Oh, wait a minute, I pressed the wrong thing. So, there we go. And then I'll get to the... yeah, so what we got here, this is what they call in the United States chroma key. So there would have been a key color behind, and that key color would have been replaced by a background. So you can sort of see the edge here. Ah, there you go. Do you see how her hair is a little bit blue here?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, and there's a little bit of a blue edge here. That means that this was a blue screen behind. And what happens is, as it went through the computer, it would go through, and as soon as it detected the blue color, it would switch it to the other inputs, and so it would put the two images together. And the BBC had their version of chroma key, and they called it color separation overlay. All right, there we go. Oh yeah, you got the bit of blue there. These SJWs with their beards, and this is 39 years old, and it's still the same people around. John Savardant, and I showed you. Did you watch that clip where John Savardant was in another program and he had a completely different accent?
Oh no, I didn't see it, but I'll watch it.
Thank you. Right, so these are my notes. Oh yes, I will read out the summary of the episode I'm not going to say what book it is because I want people to watch these reviews, so I'm going to keep it quiet. What we got here? The right to know. An endangered badger colony threatens to provoke an environmental protest that could prove most embarrassing to Hacker. His daughter plans to lead it in the nude. For me, that wasn't the good bit about it, though. It was all of the stuff that's written on here about how the civil service sees their role vis-a-vis the government, or rather those elected officials. So I'll go through this and I'll ask your opinion on it. So Humphrey's point of view, that's up there. He doesn't want innovation and change, and so I put Guardian, and then his interaction style is in charge, especially with people, especially with Bernard. His interaction style is in charge, but he has to be a bit more greasy to the minister. What I love about this series is that it's a political satire, but it has the ring of truth to it. So it's exaggerated, but it's so true. And a lot of satires don't have that ring of truth to it. I mean, this is what it's actually like. And some politicians have said, when they've come out of office, because they were fans of Yes Minister, and they said, this is exactly what it was like. And the writers had one or two moles inside government that fed them stories. And these two writers went on to have very successful careers. One of them became a movie director, and another one a writer. So their point of view, the minister is an advocate, making the department's actions seem plausible to Parliament and public. He is in fact our public relations man. Our man in Westminster, steering our legislation through Parliament. Our breadwinner, he has to fight in Cabinet for the money we need to run our department. So, for example, the legislators in... bills must originate in the House of Representatives. Do you think they write the bills?
Oh, no.
Right. So, who writes the bills?
Whoever's working under them.
A lot of it is lobbyists, and they want a certain bill put forward, and they make donations to certain, and then that's how they work their way through. I mean, a
lot of times they don't even read the bills. Someone just tells them, like, these are the main points. Yeah.
So, or the only people that sort of discuss it are sort of those in a committee might go through it. And a lot of times when they have congressional hearings, they're not actually asking the person real questions. It's just things that appeal to their base. So it's like lots of political theatre and not full of serious people. So you can understand why the civil service would have the view of these people as these are not serious people. These are just like political actors and actresses. They don't know what they're doing. We've been here 20 years. So this is why this has the ring of truth to it. Our breadwinner, he has the right to fight in cabinet for the money we need to run our department. So what did you think of their point of view? Does it have the ring of truth?
I think that's that's what I would say the minister's job is. He's just there to look good. He wants, you have to have somebody who looks good, who doesn't do anything too controversial, and just has like a good image.
Yeah, and a lot of them
the
is
people
thinking,
who've been there longer run the show.
Yeah, it's like a lot of times you've got the minister, say the Secretary of Defense. They're not going to know as much as the Joint Chiefs that are career military, and actually they had to make, when Mattis was Secretary of Defense, they had to give him a waiver because you meant to spend, I think, a certain amount of time outside of the military before you can then be Secretary of Defense, because they want a civilian that's in charge of the military. But a civilian's not going to know the intricacies of the military, but they are going to have the big picture in terms of the diplomatic intellect. Because the diplomatic intellect is not going to be a big thing amongst the military. It might be in terms of NATO allies, but they're not seeing the bigger picture. Right then. Right, okay. That bit had a big laugh. So that woman at the beginning. The badgers have dwelt in Henwood Spinney for generations. It said so in The Guardian. Oh, yes. I was just pointing out. That got a laugh line from the audience. Not just from me. So the audience knows what kind of paper The Guardian is. Seems to be her Bible, Hacker. Actually, what it says here is that the Bodgers have dealt there for generations. Oh yeah, here we go. Bernard said emollient, which means attempting to avoid confrontation or anger, calming or conciliatory. Now, what we could say is there's certain personality types that are like that, aren't there? So I reckon INTP is like that. Which other ones do you think could be like that? And which ones do you think? And which types do you think are least likely to be emollient?
Okay, so I think INTP would be like that. Maybe like ISFP. The least like that, like ESTP.
Yeah, I can't imagine ESTP being about it. I'm just going to message Mr. Jonathan Campbell. Did I tag him? Sometimes Jonathan doesn't like to be tagged. Right then. Because he likes this kind of stuff. Let's see.
There was another line in here I liked at the beginning with the lady with the Guardian newspaper, where she says, like, what's the difference between the Badgers and you? Like,
yeah, I've written that down.
Oh, you have that written down?
Oh, wait a minute. If you go through that again, you're welcome to join or type in the live stream chat. Right then. Right, so we'll get to that. There's a process.
Okay. Stick to the process.
Yeah. Oh, here I've been pinged by Jonathan. Behind the scenes action. Undo the tag. Okay. Right then, I'm going to stop this. Ruth, if you talk for a little bit whilst I undo Jonathan's tag.
Okay.
Right, okay. Where did I tag him? I'll have to ask him. Where did I tag you? On my wall? Right. Okay, so if you go through that line with the badgers,
Um, where do you want me to read from?
let's do a little experiment. Let's see how your memory of it might be slightly different from what I wrote down.
Okay, for the beginning part, like the first scene where the lady's holding the guardian.
Yeah.
Okay, so she came in and she's telling the minister, um, the only reason that you don't want to protect these badgers is because they're not humans. If they were humans, then you'd be running out there trying to get their votes, and um, you would care more about them. But then she said, "What's the difference between a human and a badger?" Or I think she said something like, "You men are the real animals," or something on that idea.
Yeah, yeah.
And then it was a funny line. The minister says, like, "Oh yes, I totally agree. I just come back from the House of Commons."
Yeah. Oh, yeah, and like you'd be maybe you should have said if they could vote, you'd be kissing their paws, and maybe they should have added taking your pictures with them, kissing their cubs,
trying to get their votes.
Right. So I'm waiting for Jonathan Campbell to join. Right. Anticipating your joining. Right. Right. Okay. So back to this. Thanks for filling there, Ruth, and you got a good memory because you remembered it a lot. Yes. Yes. There she is.
I had a special affinity to this episode. I like animals. I like badgers. Right. I guess only ever seen a badger before.
I like how you said you've got a good memory, and you said yes, Ben. I have. Yeah. No self-esteem worries there in that area.
No.
Okay. Right then. Oh, I like this bit. This is a nice, intelligent bit as well. A couple of good bits from. I think Bernard's INTP is certainly pedantic. I've just signed the death warrant for a whole army of beavers. Badgers, Minister. Beavers would have a navy. And then I like this bit here. Almost anything can be attacked as a loss of amenity. Or amenity. And almost anything can be defended as not a significant loss of amenity, which seems to signify that one should appreciate the significance of significance. Right, so I like that one. And then concomitant, naturally accompanying or associated, hacker to wife, to himself. Yeah. Oh, damnation, you can't win. It's catch-22, isn't it? Either they give you so little information you don't know the crucial facts, or so much you can't find them. Right. All right, and then we have... Now, that's actually an important... I just thought of something there. So, imagine you have a socialist country where the government is centrally planning everything. And I remember Mikhail Gorbachev once said that he was in a cabinet meeting, he was in a meeting discussing bras and about there's not enough bras in the Soviet Union. And like, should the government be talking about these things and all of these other things? It's too much. It's too much to coordinate. It has to be in a sort of emergent order. And then what happens is, if you've got something so complicated as an economy to centrally plan, you're just going to keep it the same. You're not going to change anything because it would mean too many knock-on changes. Whereas in a free market, you are going to get those innovations because they've got all these competitors. So that's why you tend to get stagnation in a centrally planned economy, unless it's the military, where that incentive there is to catch up with another power. As Jonathan messaged me, I am, as he meant, okay, anticipating your joining. Right, there's no. Yes, well, good. Right, okay. Well, hopefully Jonathan joins. We're on the next sheet now. Right. Oh yeah. So yes, social. That's literally a newspaper in England at the time, the Socialist Worker. Right,
Oh.
and in the 1990s, that was a joke. Like that, like nobody would read something like that anymore. And now you've got people reading things like that. Bernard. So this is Sir Humphrey. Bernard. This country is governed by me. Maybe you. I'll do Sir Humphrey, and you can do Jumbo. Bernard. This country is governed by ministers making decisions from the various alternative proposals that we offer them. I'll put other. Damn it. If they had all the facts, they'd see all sorts of other possibilities. They might even formulate their own plans instead of choosing between the 2 or 3 which we put up. Come on, Jumbo.
Yeah. What was that?
It's your turn. It's your turn. You do Jumbo.
Okay. Hold on, I can't really see it too well. So I'm on my phone.
Okay.
So Jumbo, so it's like a conjurer, the 3-card trick. You know, take any card, then make sure they pick the one that you intend. But ours is the 4-word trick.
There are 4 words you have to work into a proposal if you want a minister to accept it.
Quick, simple, popular, cheap.
Cheap. Yeah, and you could use that like whenever it's appropriate. Yeah. And equally, there are 4 words to be included in proposal if you want it thrown out. Complicated, lengthy, expensive, controversial. And if you want it to be really sure that the minister doesn't accept it, you must say the decision is courageous.
That's worse than controversial.
Yeah, because controversial is like it's like contested. Whereas usually they'll say something is courageous if it's unpopular. So, for example, saying that you're going to raise the retirement age to 75 in order to save Social Security, that would be courageous, wouldn't it? Raising the retirement age would be a courageous decision. It might be the right thing to do in order to make it solvent in terms of because people are living longer. And it used to be a Ponzi scheme because there were so few old people that so much money was being paid out. Far more money was being, there was like 8 workers for everyone who was retired. And then because the demographics changed, it went to about 5 workers to everyone retired. But what they did with that money is they just spent it. They never put it in. They were meant to put it into funds. And they still talk about Social Security funds. Well, the only thing that's in those funds are government bonds. So the government still owes itself money. That's so a shell game going on. They still spent the money. So it was a fraud, a Ponzi scheme. In fact, there's no difference between a Ponzi scheme and Social Security because you're reliant on new people putting money in so that the people who've been in the scheme a while can get paid out for the people who are paying in. The only thing it lasts longer is that it's mandatory. Courageous. And that's worse than controversial. Controversial only means it will lose your votes. Courageous means this will lose you the election. I like this one. And if they have all the facts instead of just options, they might start thinking of themselves. Wait a minute. I'm going to give Jonathan a push.
For what?
Eager for you to join. This won't go on. This will wind up soon.
Yes.
Hey, that was a little bit. All right then. Yes, it will. Ruth does enjoy these reviews, folks, but you know, Enneagram 5 wants to push on.
Yes.
Get something done productive.
The like kind of language they're using there, where you give someone an option, that's a language trick you can use with people. So as kind of like a presupposition, right? So
Yeah.
you can tell somebody like you can kind of like guide somebody into what you want. Like say that you um say you're buying something, and instead of saying, do you want to get this, just ask them like, do you want this in red or blue? So then they choose between the two things instead of there's like another option there of not getting it, but because you kind of set it up for them, they miss it.
Yeah, but Ruth, you got to watch out. Certain personality types, they pick that up that quick,
Mm-hmm.
and they like will react badly to that kind of thing.
I
And
love it.
oh yeah, because they'll see it as limited. Especially if you, it might work with guardians.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to work with artisans, and it's especially not going to work with NTs.
Mm-hmm.
Because NTs just naturally pick up. I mean, if someone did that to you, even before
Mm-hmm.
you learnt all this, did you naturally pick that up that they were limiting your options?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So there
But I
are,
still like it's such a good trick though. I would
yeah,
still use it.
yeah. On certain people, you can pick up, that guardians. You can try that out, but anyone who's sharp, especially if they're a little bit older, they're going to be used to. They're going to have heard these things before, and there is a word that people can use. Neither.
They can.
Yeah, people.
Yep.
You've heard people say that in response to such things. Which one do you like? This? Neither. It's not like we've not heard that before. So you got to be careful with these kind of things, because these are the kind of tricks that can backfire on people. So one of the things you can do. So what I do is early on, I'll put an if in there. Just put an if early on.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, if you would like this, I suggest this or this. Right, and then you've technically not manipulated them because it's early on, and you put
Mm-hmm.
the if there. So, if you were to buy this car, would you
Mm-hmm.
like the red or the blue? See what I mean? Because it's right at the beginning.
Yeah.
If you were to buy this, you would buy the red or the blue. You've not. No manipulation has happened there. Plausible deniability just by putting that magic if right at the beginning.
I don't think technically it's manipulation. It's kind of like guiding.
This is how INTJ
Because you
is
still have a
directed.
choice.
This is
Yeah.
maybe a difference in interaction style, where INTP is more we have one viewer. INTP is more permissive, more. It might be emollient. That word again, emollient.
Okay, yeah.
And again, like putting an if there, because if I was to try that with Jeff,
Mm-hmm.
if I was to say something like, "Would you like to do the hangout on Saturday or Sunday?" Even if he wanted to do it, he would naturally say something like neither, because it's like you're limiting his options. And freedom is such an important thing. So, and the worst thing you can say to an artisan, what are the two worst words you can use with an SP?
You must.
Yes, or
and
should.
You should.
Yeah. Should. They hate that. Should and ought. And in fact, I had it written down. Here we go. I wrote it down in this book, Personology.
Mm-hmm.
At the beginning of the artisans section, and I'll hold it up on screen so you can see it. I distrust any advice that contains the words ought or should. There you go. That's going to be artisans going to like that. If you say ought or should, you might as well forget it. They're not going to. Well, and guardians tend to say the word ought and should.
Mm-hmm.
And now,
that's where they clash.
Yeah, and that's one of the meta model things, one of the meta model violations, which is lost performative. I call it lost evidence. So it's like, and so that an artisan is like to say, who says I should? You're just repeating that. And so guardians tend to do these things where it's like, because it's the conventional thing to do, it's like, you should. That's the way things are done. That's the way. And they might say, you're always trying to reinvent the rules. Right? You're being awkward. That's just the way. That's the way it does. Like, and you could say that to like an artisan child. You're not going to school wearing your underpants on the outside. It's not the way things are done. So sometimes the Guardians are right. Superman does it, but Superman was a bit of a weird. Sometimes the Guardians are right. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, yes. I'm not going to put this on screen. This had the biggest laugh from me. The biggest laugh from me. Because Peter Schiff is always going on about sociology students, and they wouldn't get loans for a degree in a free market. So if you're a bank manager and you have to choose between somebody who is studying to be a lawyer and somebody who is studying to be sociology, who do you think is going to be able to pay back the loan better?
Well, depending on the need for those careers.
Yeah, and how many
the lawyer would probably make more.
Right, because there's not many professions that require. Oh, damn it! I just can't find anyone with a sociology degree. Right, and it used to just basically sociology degrees. Two viewers. Sociology degrees were basically Marxist propaganda, because those would be the kind of teachers that would teach it, because those are the kind of students that would get into it. So what have we got here? If they have all the facts instead of just the options, they might start thinking for themselves. Right. Hey, that's a point. So what you get in an election? The electorate doesn't have all the facts, because like they can't spend their lives studying all the issues. Again, it's too much information. You get some people who are like that, who are like the real nerds who really get into all the details. But even then, it's not for every issue. So, for instance, I'm a bit of an economics nerd, but via Peter Schiff, but I'm not into like other aspects of it. And again, what are the options that people have? Democrat, Republican. So what you could do is maybe you could pass laws by juries, because a jury, at least you get stupid decisions by juries, but at least they have all the information in that particular case. And so you could have a representative jury of 1,000 people. They've got all of the evidence. There's no media filter getting in the way, and they can make an informed decision. And also, a jury of 1,000 people would be more representative than Congress. I mean, as I forgot his name. The African American presenter and physicist on the Nova program on PBS. What's his name?
Oh, I don't know how to say his name exactly. It's Neil.
Yes, Neil deGrasse Tyson. I think.
Yeah, I think that's. I don't know how to say it. It's Neil deGrasse Tyson. Degrassi.
Yeah. He was on. He once said, when he was talking about the composition of Congress, he was saying they're all lawyers. Where are the engineers? It's like, where are the NTs? Where are the engineers? Whereas, like I said, it'd be more representative if you had 1,000 people. Anyway, for each case, and I'm big on jury nullification. The powers of these politicians need to be limited and overturned.
Oh, you can't talk about that though.
We're not allowed to talk about.
Off.
Oh yeah, that's what Judge Knapp said. If you want to get out of jury duty, just talk about jury nullification, and boom, you can be out of there.
Yeah, don't do that though.
Here we go. Can't find one in normal life. They show up on Ben's channel. That's one of the best comments, and this is going to get screen grabbed. Right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and get that on the screen, and so what I've got to do is try and get it right so I can screen grab this. Maybe I'll put Ruth back on there. The right to know. But people want to see, maybe at the end, get the thumbnail right, just as it's sort of fading out there, where you get the, or maybe like that, where you got the title and you've got them there. Need something that's illustrative of the episode, I usually want something that's illustrative of the episode, but also one of those three in it. So I don't know what a good thumbnail would be. That might be a good one, like with that SJW woman. Yeah, I might use that one.
That's a good one. I like that.
And then he takes his hand away at the end. It's like,
oh, she shakes his hand for like 20 seconds.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, so we go as that one. There we go. This is 39 years ago. You know, these left wingers didn't come out of nowhere.
If you zoom in on her two little buttons there, do they say something like "Save the Badgers" or are they just like generic pins?
I mean, these days in like 1080p, maybe, but you know, that's it's nothing showing up there. Right. Anyway, so great comment by Alex. Let's go back to this. What's the instinctual stacking of your E5 guest? What's your instinctual stacking, Ruth?
Oh, I think self-prosexual.
Ooh. Yeah, but I mean, for someone who's social last, and an INTJ, you're not really FE break.
Oh, thanks. I think I am. I've had trouble with that.
I mean, here we go. Let's see. There, she smiles. But I think you do have an issue with like people who expect you to be like fully expressive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Especially like ESFJ, they're opposite type. So I think I might just keep that on screen because it's such a good comment. Right. So where do we go on this? Controversial. Oh, and I think this might be getting up towards your favourite bits. Was that it? Don't tell me they're going to have kittens. It's not the badgers that are going to have kittens, Minister. That's him finding out that his daughter's the one who's going to lead the protest in the nude. Oh yeah, and it's like, and then the way it was set up, and then he blames the parents, and he doesn't realise it's his own daughter.
Mm-hmm.
So that had a big laugh from the audience. Just let them run wild and all this trendy middle class anti-establishment nonsense. And then I just got a massive one at this. You could make her listen to reason, Minister. She's a sociology student. Right. I wonder if I'll lose some subscribers because of this. Right. Hypothetical newspaper headline. Minister sets police on nude daughter. I'm not sure that completely kills the story, Minister. So, are there any other lines you can recall, Ruth?
Yeah, he said before they had mentioned there was going to be like a nude protest. I think it might have been like Bernard who said it. He said like, oh, they're going to have like a big exhibition. And then I think it was Humphrey was like, oh, they sure are. Like, there was like a play on words with the word exhibition.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
you're a fan of wordplays.
Yeah.
Right. I got one for you. I like this because there's like a little bit of absurdity in it. So there was a newspaper headline in the Sun newspaper, and it showed the crew of a German submarine with the crew on the outside, on top of the submarine. And the headline was, "All hands on deck." And I just love the pun on hands and hands. But to me, it's flipping funny because the idea that they're all called hands. The whole of the German crew, all of them are called hands. All hands on deck. That was a cool one. And I got a wicked one for you. This is the best one. And I better get this right because I'm terrible at getting things wrong. Television, a medium. For it is neither rare nor well done. Hey, that's a good one. Television, a medium. For it is neither rare nor well done. That is excellent. And that was from about the 1960s. That was in my diary, because I get the diary with quotes. Here we go. Are you giving static and dynamic behavioral readings in Yes Minister when identifying P and J types? This guy's like Sir Humphrey. I'm going to out Retro Gamer as he sometimes, because we were saying earlier on, Retro, that Ruth was saying who talks like this in real life. Who talks like this in real life in these elaborate sentences with circumlocutions. And very good on you, Retro, for making it real. And I can get it, and I appreciate, because he usually sends long messages, good messages, and usually using philosophical references. So here we go. Static and dynamic behavioral readings. Static and dynamic. Okay, that's a tricky one, Alex, because static and dynamic refers to somebody's internal state. So, for example, ISTJ is the most orderly of all the types. But when we were, and this is something which Socionics gets wrong, and also MBTI is to blame here as well, because when Carl Jung was talking about rationality and irrationality, he meant in the mind. He wasn't talking about behavior. So when he wrote about the SI DOM, he wrote about its irrationality, and then he wrote that they appear very rational on the outside. And his SI DOM is very consistent with Guardian. And I'll read it out. I'll read the bits out. Now, I only given a loose reading of it. I get a loose reading of it. Ruth, do you want to cover while I look at this? While I try and find it?
No, I don't know what to say.
Introverted feeling type. Okay. Right. I once did something naughty to Wojtek. I said, go on cover, Wojtek, I'm going to get some food. I left him to talk about raining dichotomies. Right, here we go. Now then, I'm going to read this out. This is for the audience. You let me know if this sounds like a Guardian. So like I said, the rationality, irrationality is on the inside. There's Victor Galenko did 3 dichotomies for DCNH subtype, which were physical manifestations of 3 Jungian dichotomies. So, for example, introversion, extroversion on the DCNH level was called connecting and distant. Connecting 2 people, distancing 1 people. Rationality, irrationality became terminator for judging type, so the ability to finish a project, follow through, and initiating to start projects, so more MP-ish. And those which are more terminating have more either FE or TE exaggerated, function at separation because they're EJ functions. And the other dichotomy was for static dynamic, the physical, we could say the physical concomitant to that, but the physical equivalent of that, how it manifests, is, so he thinks a type with extra irrationality is more connected to the environment around them, and the type with extra wait a minute. Extra irrationality is more... No, not extra irrationality. I got that wrong. Sorry. Extra dynamic nature is more connected to the environment around them. And those which are more static aren't. So, if we look at... If we call SPs static sensing types, and we call SJs dynamic sensing types, then what we can say is, as Jeff has said about Guardians, Guardians will tell you about their medical problems. And also, they're very much aware of the environment around them. So, I would say, especially with SI DOMs, if something's not right around them, it gets on their nerves. In terms of just something like the wallpaper's not right, or it's like it seems to upset their equilibrium. So you could say that the internal state is dynamic because it's affected by the external environment. Now, this is where the SJness comes in. So, if you are affected by your external environment, then you're going to want to organize your external environment so it's all nice and clean, and that doesn't negatively affect your mood. If you have a static sensing type, especially SE DOMs, they are more likely not to be affected by the mess around them. That's my hypothesis. So that is a way of putting together static, dynamic, internal, and then the external behavior. And MBTI was looking at external behavior when they were looking at rational, irrational. So yeah, you can look at static, dynamic instead of that. Now I'm going to go through the introverted sensation type, and just bits I've highlighted. I've written this as consistent with the Guardian temperament. On the contrary, he may actually stand. So he's talked about how the type is irrational because of the lead introverted sensor. So it's like if you've got somebody who filters everything through the past, and they're sort of going with that, and they're not going with. This is like theoretic. Internally, they are irrational. You can't really see it on the outside. That's the problem. But for Carl Jung, he was about the internal state, because this affects the kind of issues somebody has when he was going to interview them in psychotherapy. If you're talking about external behavior, then it's not really that relevant. So here is talking about how the type is irrational because of this weird subjective introverted sensor. And then it says that in terms of external behavior, on the contrary, he may actually stand out by the very calmness and passivity of his demeanor and by his rational self-control. That's Guardians. Rational self-control. Especially, that's SI DOMs. They are marked by their rational self-control, aren't they? Forbearance. And what else is consistent with the Kersey Guardians? Right, this bit gets a little Sir Humphrey. So Carl Jung was somebody who in real life would have these long, complicated sentences. But where the influence of the subject does not entirely succeed, it encounters a benevolent neutrality, disclosing little sympathy, yet constantly striving to reassure and adjust. The too low is raised a little, the too high is made a little lower, the enthusiastic is damped, and the extravagant restrained, and the unusual brought within the correct formula. The unusual brought within the correct formula. That's Guardian. They don't want stuff around them that's negatively affecting their internal dynamic state. What do SPs want? They want their internal state changed by the outside influence. They want that sensation. They're static. They're bored on the inside. What do Guardians have? They're anxious on the inside. They want an organized external environment. Ruth, as what I've been saying for the past 5 minutes makes sense?
It makes sense to me, yeah.
Right, good. Right, and then we could also, once I've gone through this, I can ask you, because you're also, no, you are not a dynamic type. You resemble a type which is theoretically dynamic. Right. Okay. Because it's just a model. The extravagant restraint and the unusual brought within the correct formula. All this in order to keep the influence of the object within the necessary bounds. Right. Right. Okay. This bit's hard to explain, but I'm going to give it my best shot. So, Carl Jung has... I'm going to stop this now. And I'm going to go over here and I'm going to try and do something. This is why people should watch this is why people should watch these reviews. I'm going to try and do something tricky now. I hope you're there, Alex. So, weird, I was a tie. I thought you as, what? It was a tie. You can still join. Talking good typology now. Sorry for that.
Jonathan?
I'm trying to get him in, folks. So it's a little bit, it's not the most immodest. No, sorry, not the most modest of me. Right, and I'm going to please join.
Please.
Well, I don't want to do the whole thing in caps, but right, so I'm giving you my new theory is coming. New, freshly minted theory. So, this bit here, this is the key bit. Oh, the unusual is brought within the correct formula. All this in order to keep the inference of the object within necessary bounds. Right. Wicked. Brilliant. Is going to join. Jonathan's going to join. So, they want the inference of the object within normal bounds. So, if you have an introverted sensing type, that is, they love to bathe in what the object releases within them. So usually old people will talk about not wanting to throw something away because it has sentimental value. The sentimental value of an object is all of the subjective stuff that's specific to them. Not the object itself. It's the starting point for all their subjective stuff. So, with that in mind, if we talk about all this in order to keep the inference of the object within the necessary bounds. So it's like they just want the object as a starting point for their subjectivity. If you put an SI DOM on a roller coaster or in a racing car, they can't really do that, can they? They have to concentrate on the moment. Extroverted sensation, where the object is the thing, not the subjective impression of the object. You can't go around the racetrack and it's like, oh, this bend reminds me of the time 20 years ago. But crash. This is why I really wish people not to get stuck within one system. Please, I entreat you to read Jung, read Kersey, look at concepts in socionics, and to find the connections that work for you. So there you can see how it's come together. That for guardians, they want that distance from the object, from the empirical sensation, so the subjective factor can come in. Now, I'll go through some other things, and this is consistent with inferior NE, and this is where I believe socionics gets it wrong. There are some presuppositions within socionics that a function pretty much acts the same in all positions. So, SE is about taking physical risks. NE is about taking opportunities. Is that fair to say?
Mm-hmm.
So,
or seeing opportunities.
For seeing opportunities. Good point, Ruth. Not necessarily taken, especially INFPs.
Because there's so many of them.
Yeah, like so many opportunities. Okay, so I take it you mean so many opportunities.
Yes, so many opportunities.
Right.
That you couldn't possibly take them all.
Right.
Or could you?
Very good. Oh, Jonathan is here. Jonathan is here. And I'm trying to get him to connect. Oh my God! Jonathan is here. They're
called
Obi-Wan. Hey, Jonathan, you can get little heaters now. I've not got the box with me, but you can get these lovely little heaters for £140. It's like a little bit like an electric hairdryer, and it's good for like a little personal heater.
Yeah.
Honestly, they're under £40. You can even get some under £30. Little heater. I even watched a video where a guy did experiments on them and went through all the different kinds and basically said the quicker it is to warm up the room, the actually more efficient it is because the warmer it gets and then you can turn it down. Whereas something that takes longer, even though per hour it might be a little bit less. And so basically, if you buy one, that would be cool for you. But
So that's just pure extroverted intuition and action.
right, but Ruth and I have been making connections and trying to explain something complicated, and I think we're there. I think we're rolling. We're rolling with this. I'm going to try and say it again. I'm going to say the whole thing again for your benefit, Jonathan, and you can, because you have experience of SJ relatives. So Carl Jung has written here. I'm just saying at times Carl Jung can be like Sir Humphrey, because Ruth was saying earlier on, who talks like this? Right. Although this was written down. So I'll just read this. I'm going to read the whole thing out. Not the whole thing, but little bits. So Carl Jung's writing about how the introverted sensation type is irrational on the inside. And then he writes this. So basically, he writes stuff in here that's consistent with the Kierkegaardians. So the Socionics people need to suck it up. Right, so, on the contrary, he may actually stand out by the very calmness and passivity of his demeanor, or by his rational self-control. And then we have here, and then this is the bit that gets to my speculation about what's going on inside the person, and explaining introversion, extroversion as Carl Jung defined it. But where the influence of the object does not entirely succeed, it encounters a benevolent neutrality, disclosing little sympathy, yet constantly striving to reassure and adjust. The too low is raised a little, the too high is made a little lower, the enthusiastic is damped, and the extravagant restrained, and the unusual brought within the correct formula. All this in order to keep the influence of the object within the necessary bounds. So, I'll give you my interpretation of that, Jonathan, and then I can get your opinion on this. That way I'm not putting you on the spot. I think that the SI Dom wants to keep the influence of the object. It wants it to be lessened so they can do their SI thing. And I mentioned to Ruth before you joined that old people tend to like to keep objects around. And it's like, why don't you throw that out? And they'll say it has sentimental value. And that sentimental value is all the SI stuff related with that object in terms of subjective sensor. Does that make sense, Jonathan?
Yeah.
Right, and I'm going to, okay, and then I'm going to build on that. So, it's less about the object and the focus is on what the object releases within the person. Quick sidebar, the NI types is going to be like maybe an unconscious thing that's released within the person rather than particularly sensory images, or it might be blending between the two. So, where he says there that it's lowered a little or raised a little, and it's kept within its correct bounds because it wants to be not get in the way of the subjective factor doing its thing. I'll give another example of the subjective factor. I asked my mother, who's an SI Dom, I can't decide between ISFJ or ISTJ, what it was like for her when she was reading Game of Thrones. Did you say, Jonathan, that it was too much sensory detail for you?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
For her, she loved all of that sensory detail. And she even mentioned something to me, and I said this in other Hangouts, but to me it was a particular thing about introverted sensor. That she could easily imagine smells in the sensory description. For me, I have to concentrate. Is that what it's like for you, Jonathan? Like to concentrate to imagine the smell. So you can think that for an SI Dom and for Guardians, they have this rich ability to imagine stuff that's very much related to what they've already experienced. I don't know about in terms of imagining stuff that's sort of outside of that. That might be something that's loosely type related. I don't want to say that a particular type is more imaginative than others, but in terms of sensory imagination, I think the SJ is like that because that's consistent with them liking detail. So that kind of like I said with the not. So do you think that's the case, Jonathan, that they like the sensory detail because it creates a rich inner world, subjective world which they imagine.
Sure.
Right. So, because I'm building it up here. So we can say here that Carl Jung's right with because the way he describes introversion and extroversion is complicated for a lot of people and they misunderstand it. You understand it, but this is really for the audience. So it's what the object stimulates within the person is the subjective factor, especially for introverted sensor. Now, he will bring in other things, and actually, he mentions something that I think as well, that SJ-ness in terms of fear, not fear, in sort of like that sexist behavior, is related to the inferior NE, but I'll get back to that in a moment. So, if we put that in contrast with, so it's like they want to lessen the presence of the object because they want to do the subjective thing. Now put an SI dom in a racing car. Can they do the SI thing? Or is the present moment a little bit impinging upon them?
Well, you probably could do it, especially with practice, if they're doing the same race course over and over again, for example.
Yeah, but could they, for example, oh, I remember this at the time, and then suddenly go into a recollection and take the eye off the ball. That's the kind of thing that I'm getting at, where...
Well, I think if you're in a race car, that kind of forces you to be SC mode, whether you like it or not.
Right. That's the thing. And so Carl Jung would probably call that the overpowering nature of the object. Whereas the SI wants to keep the object at a distance so that it doesn't impinge upon the subjective factor. I
mean, I'd be very, very surprised if there's not a single SJ driver in the world.
Yeah. And I think, in fact, Alistair Cook's an SJ.
I have no idea who that is.
The England cricketer. He was a...
that explains why I don't know.
He played the clarinet, so musical. That's weird, isn't it? Again, different types, different things. So jazz might be more SP. Classical music, where you got to practice the same thing again and again and again, might be more SJ. Loose trends. I'm being loose, Jonathan, here.
I just immediately thought of a fictional character who's an ESTJ, who's a jazz guy in secret.
Well, that's fine. It's loose. I wasn't firm. Yeah, that's the weird thing. You're right about that. In that SJs can have like these surprising moments of NE, and it's like, where the hell did that come from? Where the hell did this ENFP come from?
Okay, can I ask what this has to do with the show?
Well, Alex, he asked, he's a Sir Humphrey, is Alex. He asked this, and then I started talking about static and dynamic. Right, and then...
How do you type Sir Humphrey?
ESTJ.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
Why? Because he's guardian, and he is in charge, at least with Bernard. He's certainly... I'm going to show you what we were looking at. In fact, you will like this, Jonathan, because these hangouts are not a load of nonsense, you know. It can devolve into a load of nonsense. Or
I would never have typed Sir Humphrey as an ESTJ. I may have typed as an ISTJ, but I've actually thought INT. Perhaps.
I've considered that in the past.
He really does want to feel smarter than everyone, and he loves that wordplay. I think he's far too indirect to be an ESTJ.
Yeah, but Jonathan, he's learnt to be obsequious to the...
I don't think he's learned. I don't think he's learned that. I think that just comes naturally to him.
Okay, I see. I will loosen up my typo. I see him as an STJ.
I see him as an SJSNT.
Yeah, arguably, he does have the intellect of
it's not just
INTJ.
It's not just the intellect; it's the particular.
But
he really likes being the smartest person in the room. That sort of thing.
Well, arguably that's Bernard. Because Bernard's pretty pedantic with certain things.
And Bernard knows to keep quiet.
Yeah,
I kind of see Humphrey as ISTJ.
So Humphrey, or do you think Bernard's ISTJ?
No, I think Bernard's probably one of the accommodators. Probably, yeah, maybe INTP.
Yeah, I think Bernard could be INTP, Jonathan. What do you reckon?
I think Bernard could be ISFJ. But,
possibly. Anyhow, so if you read through this, Jonathan, we've already read through it, but I can get your thoughts on it.
Minister, the traditional allocation of executive responsibilities has always been so determined as to liberate the ministerial incumbent from the administrative minutiae by devolving the managerial functions to those whose experience and qualifications have better formed them for the performance of such humble offices, thereby releasing their political overlords from the more onerous duties of profound deliberations which are the inevitable commitment of their exalted position.
You see, he went posh Scottish there, folks. That's how it would have been if it was set in Scotland.
I was hoping I was doing a good Sir Humphrey, but I guess not. I'm guessing I'm doing it with who's Scottish.
Jonathan, this one is my favourite of the ones I've heard so far. I loved it. I love the phrase perpendicular pronoun.
CNT. The identity of the official whose alleged responsibility for this hypothetical oversight has been the subject of recent discussion is not shrouded in quite as much impenetrable obscurity as certain previous disclosures may have led you to assume. But not to put too fine a point on it, the individual in question is, it may surprise you to learn, one whom your present interlocutor is in the habit of defining by means of the perpendicular pronoun.
Well, Jonathan, who was it? Who is the identity of that person?
Well, me or him?
Yes,
I've seen the scene.
Love that. Yeah.
I. Yes.
Yes, it was I.
It was I.
So I wrote some stuff. Now, early on, I was saying things like,
those two sections were perfect examples of someone who is not an ESTJ. That is just such a roundabout, overcomplicated way of explaining things for no reason except to sound smart.
Wait, yeah, but he might be trying to obfuscate, though.
So much.
I get the impression he's trying to obfuscate.
Yes, but would an ESTJ go to such lengths to obfuscate? I think not. I think not, sir.
Okay, I will.
Actually, sounds a bit. See, I think in Enneagram terms, I think it's a perfect example of a social 5, because social 5s are drawn to behind the scenes power,
right,
of being the advisors, and the whole civil service as portrayed in that show is perfect social 5 society. So they're the brains behind everything.
So can you have an ISTJ social 5?
I mean, possibly, but I'd naturally be inclined towards an NT still.
One of the things is that with interaction style, I sometimes go off the actual, and this is one of the differences between real life and a character, is when he's with Bernard, the way he's played is aggressive and in charge. And so that comes across as an in-charge interaction style. Whereas in real life, you see it, you see the body language, you see what the interaction style is like. But you've got an acting choice by Nigel Hawthorne that's getting in the way of what the actual real character's like. But I would say most of the time, though, he probably is. But again, he's playing the role of being obsequious to. But in this episode, he was very confrontational with. And he was telling him, "No, your job is to be our representative, to do this, to do that, that kind of thing." So, for instance, I wrote those sections down, and he actually says to him, "A minister has 3," and he's saying this to his face. Your minister has 3 functions: advocates, making the department's actions seem plausible to Parliament and public, He is in fact our public relations man. Our man in West. No, actually, this bit wasn't to him. This bit was to Bernard. But later on, he does sort of tell it to his face.
Hmm.
And then he sort of says, "Look, I have a right to know." So that was the whole thing about, was like him keeping stuff away from him. And then you got an SJW kind of person there. Emollient. Ruth knew what that word meant. I didn't.
Emollient. I use it in my bath.
Yes. The other meaning of it, yes. Oh, and I like this bit as well. Almost anything can be attacked as a loss of amenity, and almost anything can be defended as a not significant loss of amenity, which seems to signify that one should appreciate the significance of significance. And you might think very five-ish. Oh, damnation, you can't win. It's catch-22, isn't it? Either they give you so little information you don't know the crucial facts, or so much you can't find them. Okay, I'll go with you, Jonathan. It's a certain times he seems very in charge, but that might be the position. But if you're going social 5, because it is possible for ISTJs to be 5.
If you say so.
Most of the time they're 6s. Yeah, but he actually said right at the beginning he doesn't want innovation and changes.
Well, yes, but that's because he wants to maintain his power, and the things are the way he wants it to be.
Yeah.
You can always say he's the normative still, and going goes.
So maybe you might argue normative INTJ.
Yes, I thought that. He does. I think his wordplay sounds almost any-ish, but overall, I think his demeanor is INTJ.
Because I thought that when I first started to review it with Haley, we were talking about that he does appear to have a very strategic mindset.
He's also got such a smug face that you just want to punch.
Yeah, Haley kept saying that she did not like that guy. Whereas the thing is, Ruth quite likes him. Maybe she's connecting. Maybe that is Ruth. Maybe you're connected to Sir Humphrey as a fellow INTJ.
To Humphrey?
Yeah, to Sir Humphrey.
I kind of like his character better than the minister.
I think Jim Hacker could be an ISTJ, the minister.
I think in terms of Enneagram, Humphrey, I mean, I don't know, because he's just a character. Maybe like 1 or 6.
I'm fairly...
He's very like orderly.
No, Humphrey's definitely a social 5. He's went to where all the power is behind the scenes. He speaks smarter than everyone else. I think Jim Hacker's... I think the minister is a phobic 6. But I don't think that Sir Humphrey likes his secret. He likes secrets and knowledge, whereas a 6 is more ambivalent about having too many secrets because they may get blamed if people think they know too much.
Yeah, that could be that 6-ishness could be what makes him seem a bit more SJ-ish as a 6 INTJ.
No, Sir Humphrey is not a 6. That's what I'm saying.
Oh right. Oh, sorry. You were talking about Jim. Sorry about that. Slap my wrists. Right. Oh yeah, I've got some stuff here that you might like because I went to the effort of typing this all up. There were some good sections in this episode. If you want to read that through, Jonathan.
Right. Oh, by the way, has either of you seen Demolition Man?
Yes, he was in that. It was a good. That was a good film. That was a good movie, and he has good satire.
Yeah, he's kind of. He's like a similar sort of character in a way, just a bit different goals.
Except not as smart when he didn't realise. Like, he programmed him so he couldn't shoot him. And he goes, shoot this bastard, will you? He gives it to the other guy and then he shoots him.
Yeah.
So Humphrey would have thought of that.
Well, Sir Humphrey forgot to... that memo, wasn't it? Years ago.
Oh, wait a minute, Jonathan. We've not seen that one yet. The skeleton in the cupboard, maybe. Although I've named it, so it's my fault for naming the episode.
We haven't seen it, but you had me read it out just a moment ago.
With the memo?
Yes, you had me read it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Anyway, right then.
Anyway. Bernard, This country is governed by ministers making decisions from the various alternate proposals that we... Sorry.
Yeah, it should be offer. Yes, I made a mistake.
Shame on you. The various alternate proposals that we offer them. If they know all the facts, they'd see all sorts of other possibilities. They might even formulate their own plans instead of choosing between the 2 or 3 that we put up.
Jumbo, played by John Savadant.
See, I don't know how he sounds, so it's just really...
It's just a posh English guy.
Okay. It's like a conjurer. The 3-card trick, you know. Take any card and make sure they pick the one you intend. Ours is like the 4-word trick. There are 4 words you have to work into a proposal. If you want a minister... There are 4 words you have to work into a proposal if you want a minister to accept it. Quick, simple, popular, cheap. And equally, there are 4 words to be included in a proposal if you want it thrown out. Complicated, lengthy, expensive, controversial. And if you want to be really sure that the minister doesn't accept it, you must say the decision is courageous, which is a perfect example of how the ministers of E06.
Yeah.
And that's worse than controversial. Controversial only means that they'll lose your votes. Courageous means it will lose you the election. If they have all the facts instead of just the options, they must not think of themselves. And see, the whole civil service is such a 5-ish thing. The whole civil service is a social 5 organization that they don't want the ministers to think for themselves, so they do the thinking for them.
Yeah, and they also think, they've just arrived and they have no competency in this area.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I like when people think for themselves.
Yes, but the social 5 doesn't want...
They're not social, though.
The social 5 doesn't want the dumb people to think. They want to be the smarter ones. Yeah. I think Sir Humphrey's a lot like if Palpatine from Star Wars was a real person.
Yes.
Exactly. If he didn't have all those magical powers, he'd just be forced to take a more behind the scenes.
Wouldn't it be? Because one of those writers became a movie. Oh, if only he could have written the prequel trilogy, and how fantastic would it have been if one of them had written them? It would have been brilliant. All of the stuff with the Senate would have been golden.
Yeah.
God, Palpatine would have been absolutely brilliant if it was written by these two.
Well, I think he was absolutely brilliant. And I think he was one of the few good things in the prequels.
Yeah. Yeah, good performance as well.
Well, yes, he's by a distinguished Scottish actor.
Yeah. Yeah, but I'm imagining it now. If it was written by those two, all of the brilliant scenes. They would just be and they could have done it. They could have done it because one of them became a movie writer, and one of them became a movie director. So very good writers. And I'll show you these bits at the bottom before then getting back on to the bit about Carl Jung. I like these bits at the bottom.
Don't tell me they're going to have kittens. It's not the badgers they're going to have kittens, Minister. It's their parents. It's their parents, you know. They don't bring them up properly. Just let them run wild and then feed them all this trendy middle-class anti-establishment nonsense.
Yeah, because he doesn't know he's talking about his own daughter.
I know. You could make her listen to reason, Minister. She's a sociology student, Bernard.
I think you watched this episode, didn't you? On that,
I did. I may be bastardizing the way they said it, but Minister sets police on new daughter. I'm not sure that completely kills the story, Minister.
Yeah, there we go. And then so back to the Carl Jung thing, and then we've got some good points here. People should watch these reviews because a little bit of typology comes up, especially in the ones with Homicide with Jeff, where we talk about SJs and artisans, and we get to the other thoughts. So we've got this idea of the Guardian, especially the SI Dom, wants a little bit of a distance from the object so they can do their subjective thing. And subjective stuff is a big part of the book that I've read called Improving Your Memory for Dummies. And he will talk about, he even says that your memories change as you change. because they get sort of recontextualized. So then he writes about thought and feeling are relatively unconscious, and insofar as they have a certain consciousness, they only serve in the necessary banal everyday expressions. Hence, as conscious functions, they are wholly unfitted to give any adequate rendering of the subjective perceptions. Okay, that doesn't quite get into what I mean, but the next bit does. As a rule, the individual acquiesces in his isolation and in the banality of the reality, which, however, he unconsciously treats archaically. Right, okay. So if it's boring around the person, that lets that subjective process come in because there's not too much stimulation. And then there's the bit here where, and this is where Nardi Berens get it wrong in my opinion. They attribute S Janus to SI. With Carl Jung, he's got it as SI with weak NE. And I'll explain. His unconscious is distinguished chiefly by the repression of intuition, which thereby acquires an extroverted and archaic character, whereas true extroverted intuition has a characteristic resourcefulness and a good nose for every possibility and objective reality. This archaic extroverted intuition has an amazing flair for every ambiguous, gloomy, dirty, and dangerous possibility in the background of reality.
Mm.
So you can see there, like, their risk-avoidant nature. They're almost six-ish kind of traits.
Mm.
So this is why I keep banging on about, I've done about 2 or 3 videos on this, about S Janus not just being SI, but being SI with weak NE plus one of those extroverted judging functions, TE or FE. And then there's just a bit here about, I'll do a little bit of build-up and then it gets to a good bit. In the presence of this intuition, the real unconscious intention of the object has no significance. It will peer behind every possible archaic antecedent of such an intention. It possesses, therefore, something dangerous, something actually undermining, which often stands in most vivid contrast to the gentle benevolence of consciousness. Interesting. So long as the individual is not too aloof from the object, the unconscious intuition affects a wholesome compensation. Right, so if the person becomes too introverted, then that weak NE is going to come through. And in sort of negative, maybe anxious. So, Jonathan, have you noticed that with maybe possible things in DSM where maybe if a SI type becomes too introverted, that they might get a little bit too paranoid, a little bit too anxious, something like that? This is just speculation off the top of my head.
I've noticed in what? Sorry?
No, I'm just saying, is it bad for an SI Dom to become too introverted? Because in Jungian terms, that inferior NE might come out and in a sort of like negative way, looking at negative possibilities.
I find that I'm thinking of a real life example with an ISTJ and an ISFJ. The ISTJ's danger is that they become too introverted, period. And they just get stuck in their own routines. Whereas the ISFJ gets more annoyed by being alone and they want to have someone to talk to.
Right.
I'm not thinking my parents.
Right. ISFJ is likely to have a 2 in their tri-type.
Yes. Although I know one person who types as a 614 ISFJ. I don't know. I don't know if they know Myers-Briggs that well though.
Right. So, what have we got here? Oh, here we go. And of course, people need to realise or keep in mind that when Carl Jung writes these profiles, he writes it normal, and then when it becomes unhealthy. So, I'll just write that. Then there's only that much left, Ruth, and then we could stop. There's just that little bit left. So long as the individual is not too aloof from the object, the unconscious intuition affects a wholesome compensation. Now, it's not really unconscious. It might be at this point, because now he's talking about the neurotic individual, because he stated, Jung stated inferior function is conscious normally, but can partially become unconscious in neurosis. And now, because he's talking about the SI dom when they're unhealthy, that's why he mentions the unconscious intuition. Right. Or Shalina recently told me she now, via conversations with Jeff and the things we've said, she is now her best fit type, Kersey ISTP for Shalina. She's very analytical, but she's also impulsive. And she says that she's a polarized type, where her inferior functions or lower functions are quite strong. And she said this is something that Marie von Franz would write about. And she said that she learned most of her typology from Marie von Franz, and that she said that Marie von Franz worked a lot with Carl Jung, and that they typed people. And so for the Jungians out there, maybe I suggest Marie von Franz, and because Jonathan's got a 5 in his tri-type and a perfectionist, he'll probably read her now. Right, and then
I don't
she
know
talks.
if Jonathan will, but I probably will.
Oh yeah, you got a 5
again?
as well. Marie
Yeah.
von Franz. She worked with Carl Jung. She
Marie
Shalina
von.
Franz. Yep.
How do you spell her last name?
I don't know if she was one of Carl Jung's women in terms of an affair, but she was close to Carl Jung. Yeah, Marie von Franz. Franz, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Shalina said that they typed people together, Jung and von Franz, and that the way she describes, I shouldn't say this, but it's funny. The way she describes Myers-Briggs is Myers and her mom. This is like the disrespect, the lack of respect for those two comes through. Because she's like, they based their typology on psychological types, and Shalina was saying that Carl Jung wasn't in a great place at that point in his life. And even when you see pictures of him, it's like, reduced emotional affect. And right, I mean, he wrote that book in the 20s, and he lived till about 1960. And so he changed a few of his ideas about types. Anyway, and so Shalina was saying that those two should have read von Franz because her books are out. Anyway, so I'll build up again. So long as the individual is not too aloof from the object, the unconscious intuition affects a wholesome compensation to the rather fantastic and over-credulous attitude of consciousness. But as soon as the unconscious becomes antagonistic to consciousness, such intuitions come to the surface and expand their nefarious influence. They force themselves compellingly upon the individual, releasing compulsive ideas about objects of the most perverse kind. So maybe consistent with OCD kind of stuff. Not super consistent, but not inconsistent, I'll say with that. And then this is the final sentence. The neurosis arising from this sequence of events is usually a compulsion neurosis. Bingo! The neurosis arising from the sequence of events is usually a compulsion neurosis in which the hysterical characters recede and are obscured by symptoms of exhaustion. So do you think that's consistent, Jonathan, with Kersey, ISFJ, and ISTJ?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Socionics people can suck it up. Right. Get your definition of SI right. Because they're sensory introvert.
Get your definitions right.
Yeah. Well, what do you think about their definitions, Jonathan? Because I know you say that you take the useful parts.
Yeah, that would be a well. My thoughts
Yes,
on
that would be a good hangout.
Mm.
Jonathan and Sana, and Jonathan has a complaint about Socionics definitions, and the thing is, I think SI has multiple factors to it, and like I said, with that, the thing that makes them SJ, I think of as an emergent property. And if we're going to think of it in terms of functions, like I said, it's SI with weak NE. But then there's all other things coming in, though, with NE. So Victor associates risk with NE. I would say rephrase that to taking opportunities. But INFP and INTP are SE break, and they're not really want to take opportunities, especially opportunities which are in the real world. They do take risks in terms of putting a theory out there. I mean, INTPs will come up with a theory, completely subjective thinking, and they are prepared to just like, okay, what do you think of that then? So you could say that's taking a risk intellectually, isn't it? Just coming up with something completely new and prepared to having it criticized by others. So arguably you could say it comes through like that. But with Victor, and this is one of the things in Socionics, where because you define SI as comfort center, and because you define NE as associated with risk, because of what it looks like in the NE DOMs. But I would say, but what about when it's a demonstrative function with FINX and TINX? It's not like that. It's not about those taking those kind of physical risks. But then you can say, yeah, but that's because of SE break. And then I can say, exactly, SE is involved with risk. So, because of the way they define NE, I'm going to get to a point in a moment. There's two weird things that happen. LSI gets defined as risk avoidant, and ESI gets defined as risk avoidant because of NE break.
Mm-hmm.
And they're auxiliary SE. And SE is involved in taking risks. And so, when the LSI, you said though, when you read, although Victor gets out of it with DCNH, you said when you read the creative subtype of LSI that it sounds like ISTP. So he gets out of it.
It sounds specifically like MacGyver, actually.
Ah, MacGyver, yes. So he gets out of it, doesn't he, Victor, with DCNH? Because what he could argue very easily is that the main type profile is a composite of the different subtypes. And he actually said that the main purpose of his book is that people understand the differences between the subtypes.
When are you buying his book again?
I have bought it, and it's in the flipping post.
Okay.
All right. Folks should know that I had access to this book last year, and I was sort of helping with I helped with the title, helped with the back of the book, and I helped with up to the bit where it starts going on that first dichotomy, like rationality, irrationality. But you see, I sort of stopped making suggestions at that point because I objected to the objective thing. So I couldn't, I felt like, and also the deadline I was given was like 2 weeks' time, and that was in April, and I was like, this is too much. It was 400-page book, and it was difficult, but quite a few of my suggestions got through in kinds of wording. Mine, such as like the line individuality versus commonality, was one of my suggestions for the wording of it. And when I worked on it, the wording was a little bit more Google Translate-ish, even though Alina had done it. Iana had done it, a lot of work for her to do. And she wanted the book to be practical. That's why she's got the stuff in there about getting the diagnostics right. And she said this was written from the point of view of an SF. Oh, no, she actually said sensory rational. That's what she said to Olga. And it says, no, this book is written from the point of view of the sensory rational. Because she organized Victor's material. Because she has a PhD herself, Iana. Right, well, what was I talking about with SI DOMs?
I don't know.
So, we were talking about this guy here. I'm not even answering this question. I'm going to out him as Alex. Because he mentioned himself as Alex on Jack's channel. JMP types are dynamic and static respectively, as I understand. Yes, internally dynamic, and because of that, that's why I think they organize the environment. But Oh, well, I forgot that wrinkle I was going to tell you. There's a wrinkle here. Jonathan is not going to organize the environment that much because TE break, and so I can ask you about your dynamic nature after I tell you something that's weird. In the Galenko ESTP profile, there is one line that I'm a bit iffy about, and I might put it in red and put a note on it. I even considered changing the translation of risk to opportunities, because the line said, as they grow older, they learn to take more risks for ESTP. It's like, no. Jeff has told me lots of times about like his boss and what he was like and how he's seen him get older and mature. Come on, the most impulsive people out there are young ESTPs. And Jonathan's nodding and all that, and so yeah, so I've done that. Now I can ask you two. So when you read about static dynamic, what is that like for you internally? When you read about that, do you go, okay, this bit fits how I am? Do you sort of see that in yourself? The sort of dynamic. Do you see it as like general moodiness? Because you know INFJs can be moody. What is the dynamic thing for you? So, for you, Jonathan. Then I'll ask you.
Did you just call me moody?
No, I said INFJs can be moody.
Are you asking what way am I dynamic?
Yeah, in which ways? Because it's one of these things which is very internal.
It's not a word I would use to describe myself, so I can be dynamic at times, but that's probably the inferior SE kicking in.
Okay, I've got an idea. I think the static. I'll just say I think the static intuitives. So yeah, the static intuitives. So FINX and TINX. If you think about those two especially, they have a model of how things work, and they might update their model, and it's like this is how it works. Doom. This is like this. These are all the configurations, and even if it's a complex system, this is how it's organized together. I'm thinking, and what I've heard from Sana and maybe a few other INFJs is like they don't see it like that as like a static model. It's again, it's like a dynamic kind of things, not quite that, and it flows a bit more. It's a bit more changeable. Is it like that for you, Jonathan? Or maybe, okay, let's try and make it more concrete. Are there certain things that you've noticed in the difference between the way you think and your INFP brother thinks?
Oh. Yes, but that's a complex thing to get into, I think.
Yeah, and I don't want to mention anything private. But do you see what I mean? It's like this static dynamic thing. It's so internal and it's difficult. I can see static. I can see INFP, they have these principles, that's their system, and it's not really going to change week to week. INCP is the same. They can like have a model, and it's like, and then something doesn't work, and they might scrap it and come up with another model. So it's like with Victor, what Olga complained about Victor is that he keeps changing his mind. Kersey kept changing his mind. He kept changing the names of the types. And his son said, I wish I never told him find or replace. So again, I mean, he kept changing the names of the types, the role variants, just to get that right thing. And so it's like, this is the model's not right, there's a new model. So it's like, it's staccato. And so if we say that dynamic is legato, so I can understand dynamic in terms of internal sensory harmony and all of that kind of stuff. Where if their surroundings aren't quite right, it affects their mood. Right, you're nodding, that's consistent with the dynamic sensing types, the SJs. But what is it like? What do you think it's like for you, Jonathan, maybe with the dynamic nature, or could you say that your NI is dynamic?
I suppose, yes. Yes,
Okay.
I can.
Right. Have you got examples of that? Or do you have certain predictions that change? Like a general trend of a change, or?
Yes, but I'll never admit it.
Right. Does your oneness sometimes? Do you think your oneness can get in the way of your dynamic?
I don't like it when I have to change my intuition, or if I don't know if I even phrase it like that. Would I? It might be that I'd say, "Well, that wasn't my intuition." Then. If my intuition was wrong, that wasn't my intuition.
There's a little interesting thing, isn't it? Because in their points of view, and then I'll bring this over to Ruth because she knows about Enneagram as well. Do you think that ones are static in their beliefs? Not static, you know what I mean? Staccato.
Well, staccato. I mean, what do you staccato?
Well, like, you know, in music, it would be like, and there'd be like gaps, and it would be a bit jumpy. Whereas legato, where it would smooth into each other, where the notes would blend into each other. And I just thought staccato is better than saying static, because the thinking does change of TI DOMs and FI DOMs, but it's more revolutionary rather than evolutionary. And I'm thinking that the dynamic types are more fluid. It's not, these are my opinions on this. And then something might go wrong, and then they rechange their whole model, and then it's a new model. So it's like rather than smooth. But I'm wondering how your E1 affects that, because it's like, no, this is the right thing.
I'd say that I envision my inner world as like a city, and there's certain landmarks which represent core beliefs, core principles that do not change ever, and all the other new stuff just has to evolve and adapt around it as the thing gets more advanced and more complex. But there's still certain things that I stick to through my life.
That's interesting. And also, if we think about the role of FI, you've got NI blocked with FI, a dynamic function with a static function.
Yeah.
So then, Ruth, you've been listening. What do you think of this? Very good. What do you think of this idea? What do you think? Because I don't know how much you've read about static and dynamic, because I know that Enneagram is your main thing, and I don't know how much you've looked at it in Socionics, but the way I've described it, what do you think of that static dynamic thing, sort of externally in terms of organization and internally?
So I like my external world kind of organized, or at least kind of like kept quiet. If there's like a lot going around me, I find it hard to concentrate on what's going on inside. And internally, I don't feel like there's any structure at all. Kind of like nothing's black and white.
Right. Yeah, because I think the static types, especially the static intuitives, especially the introverted static intuitives, INTP and INFP, are more likely to have black and white judgments.
I feel like I'm always ready to change my mind on something.
But not quite. It's when Victor does the forms of cognition, he deducts from three principles: static dynamic, process result, and rational irrational, I believe. Is that right? No, not rational irrational. Process result, static dynamic, and I can't remember the other one. Okay, wait a minute, because he's got holographic panoramic. Negativist, positivist, that's it. Negativist, so he would say INTP, negativist, so they're not confident of a particular angle of truth, and so they'll switch to another one, because like Doubting Thomas. And because they are static, it's like this point of view, this point of view, this point of view. And result type maybe not a flow. So the reason why I bring that up, and INFP more causal determinist, so a little bit more sure, no more positivist in their beliefs. But remember when we did the video with Leon Sau, Jonathan, and it was a case of this person's point of view, this person's point of view, this person's point of view. So it might be static from each particular reference point, each particular point of view, but not static in terms of this is the truth. Whereas maybe INFJ counselor might be more blendy in the moment, kind of the emotions, you know, kind of weird. I don't know what it's like. I can explain static, but I can't explain dynamic.
I just love how you're trying to explain NI as kind of good.
Well,
I mean, you're right, but still.
So it is like that, right? Is it like that for you, Ruth? Because I'm thinking Jonathan might be a bit more static because of the E1.
Mm-hmm. Like this. What do you again?
Yeah, because like I said, as he said that in that brilliant metaphor, he's got these places in his town which are like these are the concrete FI beliefs, and then other things are fluid.
City, not town.
I have like semi-concrete. Like there's things that I stand for, and that I'll accept those are my values, but they're not like unchanging. Like I'm always ready to change what I think, what I believe.
Right. Right. So that might be a case of you've got tertiary FI. I would argue FI is the most static of all the functions. This is one of these things where it's difficult because ISFP is more impulsive than INFP. ISFP, we could say if we just transpose INFP onto Model G, forget about ESI, bugger off ESI, and if we say that they are, ESI definitely is static bugger. It's like E1-ish and E1 and E6. E1s can be cool, and I have my ESI shifts as well, so thumbs up to the ESIs and the ones. And I got a 1 in my tri-type, and I don't know if Ruth, have you got a 1 in your tri-type?
I don't think so. I think it's probably 9.
Okay, that was a message from Shalina.
Okay.
About a file transfer. What am I saying here? Yeah, so SE, a part of SE is situation specific. Do you agree with that, Jonathan?
Part of it, yes.
Yeah. And NE, part of NE is finding generalities and rules and principles that go across situations.
NE?
NE, yeah.
I want to associate NE with rules. It's not the word that comes to
Okay, principles.
Or principles. NE seems like a dog chasing a car.
Okay. Does INFP, do they have ethics and oughts and shoulds and principles that go across situations?
Well, yes, but I'd put that more down to their FI.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, though, ISFP is our FI DOMs as well, but they've got that more situational SE. What I'm saying is, a thing about intuition in general, like at least when you get the questions, it's like, are you about the specific instance or about the general rule, the abstraction? What I'm sort of saying is, INFP abstractifies their FI value, the thing that they feel is the truth, abstractify it into a system. And that system might be an ethical system. That's not right to think because I have this generalized belief across situations. NLP would describe a belief as a generalized value or a generalization built around a value.
Did you make that word up? Abstractify.
Did I move it up? Or
did you make it up? Abstractify.
I think others would have said it. I mean, INTPs would have used that word before.
Okay, just...
Now, before we finish this, I'm going to say Carl Jung did an interesting thing. He separated out reason from TI. I don't like how socionics people put reason in TI. It's a separate process. So you can have INFJs more intelligent than INTPs because reason is a separate process.
I agree with
Jonathan,
that.
and
Yes.
I'm sure you're more intelligent, Jonathan, than quite a few INTPs.
I'm sure I am too.
Right. So, and I could even Julia, Dr. Julia, PhD in molecular biology. She's a neuroscientist. Her type, one-dimensional TI, little inferior TI. But her, she's got good reasoning power, but the way it comes out with her, maybe with the speculative thinking because she wants to go towards, and if it's concrete, if she sees a utility in it, then she'll deep dive into all the nerdy details of it. Why did I bring this up? Oh yes, and also, what was I saying? I brought up TI. I was complaining about TI in sociology. What else was I going to go with? Well, you're in, I don't. You should be able to tell me. Intuitive.
What was the question there?
Well, what was I going to think next? What was I going to say next?
So they were values.
Something about abstractify.
Yes. So Carl Jung did this good thing where he made abstractify separate process from intuition. So he said that you can abstractify. I don't know whether it was. He said you can abstractify sensor into aesthetics and FI into ethics. And he gave other examples for other kinds of abstractification. So he separated abstractification from intuition. What you can get, though, is you can get some interesting situations. So I have a question for both of you. Do you think that you can get sensing types who are not abstract in their thoughts or speech, but are more intuitive than some intuitives who are abstract?
I don't see why not. I mean, everyone's like a unique person, so
What
I
do you
don't see
mean
why
by-
that couldn't be somebody.
What do you mean by more intuitive?
Well, somebody like Shalena, she doesn't really have abstract speech. And even when she talks about Carl Jung, she goes to like concrete examples. But she is very intuitive in terms of like feeling where things will go. And she's interested in tarot and other things that you would associate with NI. So, because it's one of these things that Kersey did and MBTI, where in order to measure intuition, they did it in terms of abstraction.
Yeah, so basically you're using two different definitions of intuition. Okay.
Yeah. Because I yeah.
Kind of. It's almost like NI and SE go together because there's that sort of sense, and the word intuition does imply it's like it's just intuitive state of knowing and being in the moment and knowing.
Yes. What was that?
Someone's at your door.
Right. Well, I better stop this then and see. Right. So I'm going to stop this and then I'll be back. So stop the broadcast. End broadcast.